evening, everybody. Everybody, welcome to the February 8th meeting of the Town Board. Supervisor Livesey won't be here this evening, and I think he's testing me. There are two fears people have in life. One is heights. I cured mine after 5 years in the Tappan Zee Bridge at 419 feet. Now we'll deal with public speaking. On our, is there any public comment on agenda items? Mary Jane?
No, sir.
Nothing? Okay. Thank you, June, for sending out the minutes digitally as you did. Do I have a motion to approve our January 25th minutes?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Communications. What I'm gonna do is, everybody knows I like to talk a lot and have lengthy emails. So the supervisor, in his summary, I'm gonna include the communications in there. So I'm gonna jump to number 4 and read the financial reports and request resolutions. Major ticket items for the $58,807.31 we paid out, in the run dated January 28th. Royal Carding, $2,950 for landfill charges. Four-Star Transmission, $2,063 for highway truck number 65. Hoffman Equipment, $7,878.75 for backhoe parts, equipment repairs. Mail's Best Friend LLC, $3,015 Microsoft Exchange email license renewal. If anybody needs an explanation on that, that young lady in the back room can tell us about it. Orange and Rockland, $2,677.58 for street lights, supply and delivery. Ham Enterprises, $4,790.50 for sewer sludge hauling and an alarm call out at one of the pump stations. Rockland County Solid Waste, $15,644.97 for sanitation municipal solid waste from 12/16 to 12/31. Things are getting expensive. And, okay, so the next item is we're gonna do a couple of budget transfers tonight when we get to that part of the meeting. So I guess we are on to board liaison reports. Who would like to go first? Jim?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, everyone. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I've made a lot of comments before, really since our first meeting, about fiscal responsibilities, budget constraints, looking at how we are going to effectively spend our dollars, not only this year, but getting ready for next year. Been meeting with a number of people to talk about that. And one of the things that I think is going to be very, very important is, again, I just want to emphasize, and if I'm going off the agenda, let me know, but just some comments here too. I'm still getting sort of used to all this. That I'm basically saying that all of the government boards, the village board, the town board, the school board, we need to continually look at how we can effectively spend taxpayer dollars. We're going to be going through at the town board. There's several contracts that are up for renewal. I plan on looking at all of those, working with Kelly on that. She's provided me a list of the ones that are going to be looked at this year. Police contract is going to be looked at. Several other contracts are going to be looked at. We need to be considering very carefully what added expenditures there may be other than anything that is contractually mandated. And in negotiating contracts, we need to look at all of that very carefully. Village of Highland Falls has a police contract coming up very, very soon. I would encourage the Village of Highland Falls Board to look at those contracts very, very carefully. Negotiate them carefully. We are going through some extensive time now fiscally, not only as a government, but also as taxpayers, as individuals within the community. Now is not the time to be increasing taxes. And if that is the indication that we're going to be getting, I'm going to be making a lot of noise about that here at the town level. You all probably know that. I think you all will be doing that with me. And I would encourage the village board to be doing the same thing. And I would encourage the school board to be doing the same thing. So we're going to be looking, watching, talking to people. I would ask for community support with all of this. Having said that, it's very important that we do the basic things that government needs to do. Health, security, welfare of our community. And so there's some things that we're looking at with the police. There's some things that we will be looking at with the ambulance corps to ensure that we are doing things appropriately, professionally, with the right response times. And I'll be meeting with the ambulance corps team tomorrow night, talk to them about this in more detail. Regarding the ambulance corps, as you all know, a lot of it is a volunteer force. We need volunteers. We need help. When you pick up the phone and you call 911, you want to be sure that you get the response quickly, and the way that's going to happen is by having people who are willing to volunteer and help us with this. So if you are interested, I mentioned this last week or last meeting, if you are interested in volunteering for the ambulance corps, please let me know. Please contact the ambulance corps, and we would be happy to talk to you about all that. I had an opportunity also to meet with Kurt Hahn. He's our emergency management coordinator. He does this for the town of Cornwall. He's doing this also for the town of Highlands. He is in the process of putting together a rather extensive emergency management website notification process. He is also will be looking for some volunteers to help fill out a team for emergency management for the town of Highlands. More to follow on that. He and I are going to be having some discussions with that. Had an opportunity to meet with, I'd mentioned this before in my liaison role with West Point, had an opportunity to meet recently with the West Point Garrison Command, had these same kinds of conversations with them. How are we sharing services? How are we sharing resources? What is it that we can continue to do good? Because we are doing a lot of good things, but how can we continue to do things better? More to follow on that. More meetings are going to be set up, and I'll be reporting that back to the board. I'd like to talk a little bit about, and if it's not a liaison report, Rich, I'd like to talk a little bit about the whole online having meetings. Is now a good time to do that, or in a new business type of thing?
I don't know. I actually sent out in an email, I don't know if you got it, the building department budget and maybe places, so we could talk about that. We'll come back to that.
We'll get back to that? Okay,
Yes.
because it's all part of emergency management also, it's all part of communications with the community. So,
Yeah.
so I'll save my comments on that. Also, one of the responsibilities that I have been asked to do is to set up our Town of Highlands Board of Ethics. I have 2 representatives for that. It's a committee of 3, myself plus 2 residents. I have those names that I'd like to submit also. They've agreed to serve. I can do that now, or I can do that at some.
When we get to the action part of the meeting later on, after all the reports, I got an email from Bob before the meeting.
Yeah.
That
About
one
that.
you sent with the names you presented?
Yes.
He said just make sure it's okay with Justin to act on that. He thought it was okay to act upon it, but
Yeah.
it's not on the current agenda.
Right. Okay. And so that's it. That's it as far as liaison reports. More to follow a little bit later on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richie?
Nothing really new, other than I again want to thank all the municipal employees inside and outside the building for their continued good work in providing the services that are necessary to keep government moving forward. And I would like to single out the Highway Department for their great work during the past storm. Mother Nature, again, told us who's in charge, and we learned the lesson. And we just have to be patient when things get like that, but it did work out, and I think everybody was safe. That's all. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, everyone at home. So, the 4 areas of my responsibility in terms of liaison: recreation, dial-up bus, police, and emergency management. So I appreciate my battle buddy for handling emergency management tonight. So, recreation. We're going to collaborate with the Village of Highland Falls on a major initiative. That is to bring about the reality of having, hopefully soon, a full-time community center / senior center. Still waiting for policy to be completed and signed by the village and the mayor and the town supervisor, but the discussions have been going very well. Our team up here, meaning recreation and dial-up bus, is ready to move in as soon as everything is signed. We do a ceremony. And what that will do is allow for a lot of activity out of that building that we've been all waiting for many years now. So more to follow on that, but look out for the youth and the seniors. Got a lot coming your way. Food bank continues to be one of our brightest initiatives here in the town of Highlands. The operation, if you don't know, has moved from the American Legion to the community center. The times are still the same. The day is still the same. Thursday, and Mary Jane, is it 11:30 or 12 starting?
12 to 1:30, please.
Yes.
We do let a couple compromise people in a little bit before 12. People
Okay.
can't be around others.
So 12 to 1:30 are the normal hours every Thursday. If there is these exceptions of people who cannot make it, they just physically cannot make it, please reach out to any one of the board members, reach out to Mary Jane Pitt, reach out to the Recreation Director, Aaron Falk, and one of our volunteers, Charlene Yale, also out there. But nobody should be going hungry. The center is doing a phenomenal job continuing to keep the senior citizens engaged throughout this pandemic, and they're doing it in a very safe manner. So I got a little bit of a report here. They've had 26 engagements with various seniors over the course of a few months. They are certainly aware of the COVID-19 precautions. They're making sure everybody's social distance, they're making sure everybody's wearing masks, and they limit the gatherings to a short period of time. But they're doing things like having knitting groups and doing bi-weekly, giving out free books, magazines, game distributions. Again, this may not seem important to many folks, but it is when you're sitting in the house and you're all alone and your mental health is not going well because you feel like nobody's there for you. So to get out and really be able to interact is an important part of community wellness. So I thank the center for what they're doing right there. Dial-up bus continue to do a great job to get people moving when they need to get to grocery stores or they need to get to doctor's appointments and they can't, they don't drive or they don't have the capability to get themselves there. So Colleen, hats off to you, Deb, and all the rest of the drivers. We appreciate what you all are doing. The police department, heroes as usual, continue to work hard throughout the storm and throughout the adverse weather to keep people safe in this community. And meanwhile, working on the governor of New York's Executive Order 203. For those who don't know what that is, that's an initiative to make sure that all police departments throughout New York go through a reform process. It was initiated back in June of 2020 after the George Floyd murder. And the last but not least, like I said, hats off to Kurt Hahn, a champion, doing a wonderful job out there, keeping us abreast of the policies that we need to have in place for emergency management. You know, back last year we had a tropical storm. Kurt and I were joined at the hip in ensuring that our community was as safe as possible. And then along with the other elected officials, Laurie Tortel, James Scoofus, Colin Schmidt, we was able to get people's power on. We was able to get emergency ice, dry ice, and so forth and so on. And so we're going to continue to cultivate that operation. And I'm glad to see one of my colleagues is all over it. So subject to any questions, that's all I have.
Okay. Everybody take a breath. I'm going to be a while, all right? I'll start with my liaison report. So the Zoning Board of Appeals meets the third Wednesday of every month. As of 4:15 today, I spoke to Jack Janaroom. There was nothing submitted, so I don't believe there'll be a meeting on the 17th. If there is, our next meeting wouldn't be until after that. You can always go to the website, check Highlands online meeting data, any Zoom information or WebEx will be there for both the ZBA and the planning board. The planning board meets on the 18th, I believe, this month, which is the third Thursday of the month. They are meeting?
They have a public hearing.
Okay. So, and I advertised last month the same thing. You go to the website, the Town of Highlands, and you can get right there. There were quite a few people watching the meeting last time on WebEx, so, and it's working out well. Is Eric hosting the meetings, or are you, Kelly?
No,
Eric, okay, all right. The building department, so at this point, I think everybody knows that we are using a consultant, an unbiased professional third-party consultant, reviewing certain matters, because Phil has papers all over that office. He's doing the best he can to keep in step with things. In order to ease that, certain projects have been deferred out. That deferral is working out well, because people want process, they're getting it. They may not always get the answers they want, but they're getting process. I met with Jessica and Phil, because there's a little bit of uncertainty with planning and zoning logistics. I think the growing pains are almost over with. It's working out pretty well at this point. Some certainty. At the last planning board meeting, I think there was discussion about in the Village Highland Falls, the subject of lot line changes falling under subdivision and the associated fees. I told them communicate with Eric and you, because I don't know what those fees are. The sewer. On January 28th, I think I invited everybody. I think Jim was busy, and it was a pretty cold day. We had a meeting down at the sewer plant. Jerry Coleman of Fusco, Pat Patterson, Jimmy the plant operator, myself were down there to discuss a timeline of construction. He sent out a revised schedule, and there were a couple of things that surfaced at that meeting that weren't a big deal. And so he thought May 1st was a plausible timeline to complete the project down there. We have about $400,000 in electrical work that's been done. I've seen it with my own eyes what's been done. It's legit. And there's a service awaiting the Belt building. There's a new telephone pole. All the control building has been changed over. There's going to be submarine-style doors because of the requirements for rising sea levels on a couple of those. That's all being incorporated into that. That's going well. Having said that, last Friday I got a phone call from Al Fusco saying that the building, because of shortages of materials, can't be delivered until July. So, we're making some field changes with TAM. I told him there's no more money left and there's no way that we can wait until after May 1st, so that was a little bit of a disappointment, but we'll deal with it. The LED lighting restraining order has been lifted. I don't have anything to say about that tonight because I didn't have time to make out a full report next meeting. I will. Today, along with Jim, and I see we have our two chiefs here, I attended an AED presentation up here, which I'm sure they're going to talk about. The same gentleman that presented back in September to Rotary for the Striker chest compression system presented today. I'll let them talk about that. His name is Bryson Carl, I believe. And at the Corbin Hill Water Plant, when I read Bob's report, I hope this will tie into it. The Corbin Hill Water Plant has a fence around it. And some years ago, Justin was involved in it years ago. There's an area up there for a future tank. I think the town paid 75 grand for it, and there's some easements and whatnot. That tank has never been built, and in order for it to work, the water line going up Canterbury, which doesn't exist yet, would have to be tied in to Corbin Hill. Around that fenced area is pretty heavy encroachment of shrubbery. Pat and I talked about that today. Next year, I think we're going to survey it and just kind of, someday we have to have that tank, because if the Village of Highland Falls has a water main break and they shut down, I don't know if it's by law or not, you generally want to have a 3-day safe. So it'd be nice to go to the village line, shut the valve off, and backfeed from a full tank in Fort Montgomery. We don't currently have one. That was probably 20 years ago now. That's something that someday is going to have to be done for that water system to be truly functional. Okay, everybody got a break from that? Now I'll go to Bob's stuff. I just wanted to let everybody know, like, You're really lucky to have the supervisor that you do. He's probably watching, and when I tell people that he still has his communion money, he's just gonna have to get over it. So that's how he watches the town money, and we all respect that. All right, so we got a letter from Orange and Rockland in regard to the Little League electric service damage. I sent the email out, so I hope you got that, Ty, to be able to look at it. Aaron sent me some pictures, he was up there. So, without making too much of a big deal out of it, I spoke with Kelly today. The town has 14 electric accounts. I wasn't sure if that's one of them or not. So the village takes care of the infrastructure, the town runs a program, the Little League has a board that I didn't know if they were functional or not, I'm told that they are, that they raise their own money, and that money comes to you and you pay their bills for them.
Correct.
So when I'm told that they're going to pay for this service to be dealt with, because it's live, it's bent over, and it has been there for some time. This has been since October, I was told today, that it's been laying there. So O&R is gonna shut down the electric if it's not fixed before the February the 10th. And I'm told that the Little League Board contacted Perullo to deal with it in a timely fashion. Did I get all that right? That's how that whole deal works there,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
All right? Any questions as I go along, feel free to stop me. Bob Livesey got an email notification from Senator Skoufis. We're going into budget season, and due to COVID-19, it's not possible to meet in person, but if there's any needs that you might want to extend to him to take to Albany for the budget process, to please indicate them. I'm gonna read what Bob sent. Dear James, as you are aware, the town of Highlands Ambulance District finally put into service a replacement ambulance for the vehicle lost and totaled in an unfortunate accident. Our insurance company provided $126,684 towards the purchase price of a new ambulance, which was $171,000. To cover the shortfall, we took $44,852 from our ambulance reserve fund, leaving $49,000 in it. This fund is generated each year to replace the ambulance, generally every 10 years. The older ambulance we have is a 2009 Ford diesel. We've had many mechanical troubles with this vehicle. Since we've received it, it is time to replace it. Obviously, we do not have near enough funds in our reserve fund, nor do we anticipate putting enough into our very limited budget. This brings us to the purpose of this letter. I'm asking for help. I'm asking for a grant for $150,000. A grant our reserve funds will enable us to obtain the equipment and a new vehicle. You have helped the town of Highlands in the past. I hope we can count on you in the future. Sincerely, Bob Livesey. Okay. Now, I talked about the Corbin Hill water tank before with the fence. There was a letter that Bob received from a neighbor up there, basically, not a complaint, but an observation that they want the town to be a good neighbor and keep in step with cutting the grass and things as such. And Bob's response was, during the grass cutting season, the town highway department has a large responsibility for cutting grass and trimming the side of roads, such as Mine Road, Mine Dock Road. There are 3 cemeteries, 3 parks, all of which are the responsibility of 5 employees of the town highway crew. When monies are available and when we can find a reliable part-time summer employee, we use this to supplement the highway crew. Keep in mind, there is much more work to be done to the best of our ability. Also, please note, the grass in that area was not maintained when it was under the control of Corbin Hill Homeowners Association. Feel free to call me if you think the grass cutting needs to be cut, and I will do my best to get it done. Like, I think everybody knows, and I'm not going to name names, but with COVID, yeah, people have to quarantine, they're mandated to. We've had a ton of people that have not been able to put together a full crew or a full office for some time now. We're doing the best we can to address that. This is not a complaint. I raked my leaves on October 15th out to the curb. They weren't picked up until the week before Thanksgiving, because between sanitation, quarantining, it's very hard to put a crew together. So the DPW and every other body and agency in the town are working their tails off to do the best they can. Please be patient with them. I'm getting there. Kelly has a couple of budget transfers, which I'll bring up in a little bit when we start to take action on them. And Bob got a letter from, help me say his name, Baumgartner?
Yes, sir.
Which is the attorney for the PBA. Dear Supervisor, we represent the PBA. It has come to the attention of the PBA that the town intends to institute wearing of body cameras. Use of body cameras is a mandatory subject of negotiation. The PBA demands negotiation in terms and conditions of the use of body cameras prior to any use of such cameras. Consider this letter a demand to negotiate the terms and conditions for use of body cameras. Kindly contact us to arrange a meeting for negotiations. We're just at the beginning of that. We have find money, all the other logistics, so just part of the report I was asked to read off. And I think I'm almost done, except that another presentation we had the pleasure, all the town board members and the police, was a presentation on Lexapol, which is in regard to addressing the 203 demands by the state. So being that I've spent a lot of time talking and everybody's falling asleep, I think it'd be a good time to let the two police officers come up and discuss these presentations that we had today.
No, I'm not short-winded either, so. I'll start on the first one, and good evening. So this morning, we met with a representative in reference to updating the AED device. I think the meeting went very well. We got a lot of information about our patrols who now carry an AED. The supplement when the ambulance comes out, we're basically looking at the rest of the town as well. AED down in the lobby and some of the other buildings. So it's in the infancy stages, but we want to start obviously by replacing the one that's in the patrol car. We had an extra one last year, but they're out of warranty and you can't get parts from them. So I think it was a good presentation and gave us a lot of good information. In regards to body cameras, it is very, very in the beginning of where we're at. Executive Order 203 dictates the police reform. We're working on our program as we speak. I think it's a way of the future. It's been mentioned to the PBA, which I think, in fairness to say, you know, that's why we get the letter, but we're not there yet. You can continue. Anything to stop me is fine.
I just can't hear you at all.
Okay,
That's right.
thank you.
That's
As for the executive order on police reform, we're happy to report that letters have been sent out to those individuals in our community and surrounding communities that we wish to serve on our committee. If you haven't got the letter by today, you'll probably get it tomorrow. And we're probably going to add a couple of folks as well. I think our committee is very diverse. I'm actually excited to start the meetings. What we'll do is we'll meet as a committee first, obviously via Zoom or via the WebEx system. And then we'll talk about our plan. We'll present our plan. And then we'll ask for the community to give input as well. And hopefully, when we're done with it, it's a very diverse plan that affects all folks that not only live in the community, but travel to the community as well. As for Lexapol, Lexapol is an organization that helps write policies. We have written rules and regulations and policies at the town of Highlands, but it gives us a step ahead. They do a lot of the research for us. We see if it fits our policies and procedures and the way we operate our police department, and then we implement them. So again, we have policies and procedures right now, but I think, especially with the reform coming out, we want to be one step ahead of where we're at. So I look forward to more conversations with Lexapol as well. And of course, I want to introduce the new Deputy Chief, Frank Basile, a retired police sergeant from Washington, who now is on board with us as well. Great conversation this morning about AEDs. Frank is also a paramedic. So it gives us a little understanding of how we will obviously deploy these and train our folks as well. That's all I got.
Thank you.
So
You're very
just
welcome.
to,
Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, despite the fact that we already have policies in place, we've already been having policies in place, so the public needs to know that. But because this executive order from the governor has come down to examine our policies, to do a deep dive, then possibly reform them if necessary, then therefore we need additional, potentially staff to help with that. That's what Lexapol does.
It is. So when they send us the manual, or after we answer our questionnaire, they'll look at our policies as well and see where we can upgrade. So for reform, a lot of our policy under 203 is, what are we gonna do going further, forward, I should say, excuse me. You know, how are we gonna handle certain situations? So for example, one of the things that we came up with, civilian complaints. How can you access that? So we're gonna put it on the website. So a lot of that's gonna be written into there, and the experts in the field are the ones who are telling us, hey, listen, this is a good idea, this you should implement. Not everything they have is gonna fit our mold for the community here, but I would say about 98% of it will be out there, and we'll be able to pick and choose where we're at. So it's gonna support our policies and procedures as well.
Yeah. So I just want the public to know that with the committee that's being formed, we're going to truly do a good examination of what we currently do, how we currently operate, and we want to ensure that our police continue to be as professional as they've always been, and then certainly engaging the populace with the theory of community policing, and getting to know folks and being inclusive and all those good things which the governor's intent is. All right, so thanks, Chief, for what you all do, and
Thank you, sir.
and we know this is just going to be another home run. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to make a comment about the AED meeting too, that Chief Perry set that up, and appreciate you doing that, Chief. That on the AED, that's the automatic external defibrillator, the paddles shocking someone if need be. Not only is it necessary for our police in terms of them responding to emergencies, but also our ambulance, and that's one of the things that if anyone in the public is listening that is on the ambulance corps, something I'd like to have a conversation with all of you on that, because as we are looking at the possibility of upgrading the AEDs for the patrol cars, it probably makes sense to do that for a broader group ambulance. As an example, also, and I guess I'm sort of looking at June here a little bit, that part of the conversation that happened this morning is whether or not there is a requirement in public buildings for AEDs.
Okay.
And is that something you could research for us?
I can research it.
Because I don't know, and no one seemed to know what the answer is to that, but a topic of it, the DPW building, down at the sewer plant, here in Town Hall, wherever else there may be, because obviously what we don't want to have happen is something happen and we need one and we don't know where it is, or we don't even have one. And so we need to make sure that we're in compliance with that.
Regardless of whether it's mandated, I will insist that we still keep it in here.
Yeah, well, that's here, but I think the question was also DPW, down at the sewer plant, wherever there is a public facility in which we have people routinely there, or people who could be coming in, is something that we can look at. And so and then there's also, if we have a volume type of thing, there's the potential of it being more beneficial to us financially, rather than one or two that I think the chief was talking about. And so there's a lot of good upside if we can
Well, that's what
take
we
a
did
good
the last
inventory.
time, was we got the patrol cars, the ambulances, and us, right, Mary Jane, one for recreation. There was like 5 or 6 we got the last time, and we got this one downstairs.
Yeah. And so the technology now is a lot better. There's a way to network them, to look at them, to find out if they are still serviceable or not before we find out that they're not. And so there's a lot of potential upside. So we sort of need to cast a broader net, certainly with the patrol cars, but we need to cast a broader net to see what our real need is. Yeah, thanks, thank you.
Thank you. It was very interesting, and I did call Pat Patterson. He told me anecdotally, well, I'm sure it's the truth, there isn't one at the highway garage. I know there's not one at the sewer plant.
Yeah.
The one that's downstairs, I don't want to put anybody in position of being, in trouble for not keeping up with maintenance or whatever. There seemed to be some uncertainty as to who checks on it. With these units, what was, I forget the name of the unit, help me, Frank.
Yeah, I've got it written down.
I can't remember the name of it. I don't want to, the CR2.
CR2.
It was CR2, this unit, LifePak CR2, which is replaced in the LifePak 1000. Via a wireless community environment, which the police cars have Wi-Fi in them, If the unit has anything wrong with it, it's gonna be known by default. It has a little blinking light on it. And I'm not gonna say the numbers, because it's been my experience, when you say the numbers on TV, and then it's time to go out for bid, you now have collusion. So I won't say the numbers just yet, but I think they're very reasonable. And if I'm not mistaken, the police cars have a second-hand refurbished unit that you're depending upon. Is that correct, as your main unit?
It was donated, it's been refurbished. The other pair, the identical one, was sent out for repair last year, and it could not be repaired. So they're outdated, so
Okay.
if something happens to this one, we'd have to replace it
Yeah.
anyway. So jumping ahead, being one step ahead of it. Yes, sir.
Action will have to be taken at some level, so, okay. All right. So we had our general discussion about PBA and body cameras. If anybody has anything else to add to that. We had a discussion about Lexipol. We have a couple of things that we're gonna have to act upon. Everybody should have gotten the email from me with a pretty lengthy, as I usually do, explanation as to the need to act tonight on the reappointment of Monica Sullivan to the Assessment Board of Review. And for obvious reasons, I will recuse myself, but I need a motion and a second to move forward.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I abstain. Now, for Kelly's budget transfers, and I went to the budget and sent pieces to all of you to see just where it's coming from. She's looking for 2 transfers, do I have that right?
That's correct.
The emergency anchor coordinator, other expenses, we need $116.45 to go from A 190.401 to A 8670.401. Is that correct?
Almost.
Well,
It's A 1990.401 to A 8760.401.
okay,
The contingent account to the emergency action coordinator, other expenses.
okay. And I chopped off a piece of the budget and sent it to everybody so you can see what it looks like as of the adopted budget. And the second transfer is for the emergency anchor coordinator equipment, $850. I'm probably gonna get this wrong, from 8670.201 to 8670.401. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So those 2 items are what we need transferred.
correct.
Okay. We're gonna talk about the sewer plant operator separately in just a moment. So, need a motion to act on those 2 budget transfers?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Opposed? We're good.
Thank you.
Which account was the second transfer going into?
Emergency action coordinator, other expenses. They're both going to the same account.
Okay,
Transferring
from,
from the contingent account
right,
and the emergency action coordinator equipment account.
equipment, okay, got it, thank you.
All right, I think I sent out on January 28th or something like that, a rather lengthy email talking about the history of the sewer plant in the last year. Sorry for putting you through that pain. And then I followed up on that with, for reasons that the operator doesn't want me to discuss on television, he's willing to cap out at $1 less than $35,000 a year. That would translate into $33.65 an hour for 20 hours a week, because, this is my bad, with people quitting down there, and with the COVID and everything else, and with the project down there, there became a need for more man-hours. So he's been working 23 hours a week, and I've been approving his time. Kelly brought it to my attention, along with other people, that's a problem with civil service. If it's more than 20 hours a week, you have to work the list. And so everybody knows that the chief works a lot more than 20 hours a week. The need will be met, but it's gonna be capped out at 20 hours a week and at $34,999 a year. And that still brings us $1,500 less than what the budget allowed for in personal services. I gave a long history between the operator. He's excellent. He's put up with a lot. He called me 11:30 the other night to ask me a question about the DMR. I always answer. He's excellent. And it's still approximately $3,000 cheaper than it was 3 years ago, because when I got on the board, I decided to exhibit my heroics and save money because the former operator was capped at $30,000 a year and his salary was $36,000. So I took that money out of there and moved around to other things. So having said all that, can I have a motion to adopt the $33.65 an hour at 20 hours a week for Jimmy Kiernan in a revised salary?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm an aye. Okay, that takes care of that. Jim, before, I sent you the email from Bob about the ethics. Did you see it? I don't know if you got it or not. I just sent it to you before.
Yeah, I was just trying to scan through.
Okay.
My phone, the 11 pages is fine.
Do you want me to come over and show it to you, or?
No, the supervisor had me look at the ethics committee. I didn't review the names, nor would that would not be my input, but yes, the ethics committee should be a board member and 2 members of the public, and if you have qualified names that the board is comfortable with, they can move forward and put them on the ethics committee.
So I guess there's a need. I'm not familiar with what vacancies there are in that board and everything. You go ahead and make your tell us about it, make your motion, and we'll act.
Okay, so there is Chapter 11 in, for the town of Highlands in our code. Is about ethics. Just so the public knows, I found this out here recently, that we are all on an annual basis required to sign an ethics statement and ensuring that we have no conflict of interest types of things, either in our personal life or family members associated with things that are going on in doing business with the town of Highlands. A very standard type of form, as a lot of you know, and some of your other things that perhaps you're involved with. But part of our code is also the formation of what is called a Board of Ethics. It is something that we are required to have. It requires one member to be one of us, and I've been asked to be on that board. And then there are 2 other individuals, residents of the town of Highlands, that need to be on that board also. I have asked Ann Molina from Highland Falls and Gus Guteratis from Fort Montgomery if they would like to serve on that board with me. And they have both wholeheartedly said yes, they would like to do that. And so that's what I'd like to present to the board tonight for your approval. The addition of Ann Molina and Gus Guteratis on our Board of Ethics.
So you've made a motion?
Yes, so moved, yes.
A second?
So before we make the second, I wanted to have a point of discussion. So they're both great names, by the way. Thank you for volunteering. But the question I have is that, and being in the center being hired by the town to do some work for senior citizens, is there any conflict of interest? Is my question.
Certainly of perception, she could serve. She wouldn't be disqualified from serving, but one point of the ethics committee or the board of ethics is that people within town should feel free to raise any ethical concerns, and if they have other associations with her in a role with the town, maybe they would be uncomfortable. Again, with only 3 people, you don't want to put a situation where someone has to frequently recuse themselves from these discussions. Having said that, you, on and off, you've had your board of ethics. It's been in place at different points. I've never been brought into any consultation with that board, which the attorney doesn't have to be. But typically speaking, if there were serious allegations, I would be. So I think she could probably feel comfortable doing it, but it might be worth Jim following up with conversation with her.
I wanted to raise that so Jim would be aware of the dynamics. Because
Correct.
he wasn't here when we put that contract in place. And so now you know the situation.
So, I think it's a good point. One thing it does say here, though, is that the ethics board is an advisory board, and so it would be action that would be taken would be, the town board would be what would take any kind of action if there is anything. So this is a pure advisory board, not an action taking, if that's the right term for this and everything too. And so I would think that there would be the opportunity for someone to recuse him or herself if he or she felt that they could not.
Yeah, I don't have any
Yeah,
problem
do-
with it. I just wanted to bring the point up.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm comfortable with Ann. I think she is of high integrity. And I don't think that's, I don't
No,
think that's
that's not
any
an
question about that at all.
She wouldn't be hired
Um,
by the town.
Yeah, but Justin, if you think that there's something,
No,
Because we don't
again,
wanna put someone in a bad situation.
I know her as a person of high integrity as well. That wasn't my point. I think it was well raised by Councilman King, so there's no confusion, everyone's aware.
Yeah.
But no, I don't see any prohibition.
okay.
Okay, so I messed up a little bit. You're supposed to have a second before discussion, so I'll go ahead and ask for a second now.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed, none? That carries. So we're just about done, except two things. I forgot to ask the attorney for any of his comments, so you're welcome to do so now.
Just a gentle reminder to, right, next meeting, you have the public hearing on community choice aggregation, so a gentle reminder for all of you to review that local law. If you have any concerns prior to the public hearing, just please let me know.
Thank you. And the final one, I don't know if we can act on tonight, is, and Jim, feel free, or anybody else to speak about working remotely. Here's what I've discovered in talking with Kelly, and with June and with other people. So I was concerned about getting a laptop and having New Windsor IT install IPS on it, or Edmunds or whatever, and it would turn into quite a feat to do that. I'm not sure if there's a fee for each time you do it. Kelly's telling me if we had a laptop and people have Wi-Fi at home, that it can be set up where they work remotely by using their town hall computer fired up, using that laptop at home. Therefore, you could have several people be able to log on, either as guests or Phil. Phil was out for a week and had the time to work at home, but we didn't have the ability to enable him to do so. With everything that's going on, I think there's going to continue to be a need there has been a need for being able to work remotely. Kelly's alone in her office right now, so as far as procuring a laptop, I sent out a copy of the building budget. I don't know where we're at with it as far as updated right now, and I'm looking at equipment, and we chopped down quite a bit at budget time. But the building department budget in general is 3.77% less than it was the year before. And also, I think, I don't want to jump ahead of myself, with having the chief inspector seat empty and using a consultant, I think we're going to save a pretty good amount of money before the end of the year. So if that's where people want to look for money to get a laptop computer, I don't know if we can act on that tonight. I think that there's some urgency involved. I think we need a laptop to be able to be a loaner for people who can't come in to be able to work at home. We discussed getting an iPad. I love my iPad. It's single user. You can't have several people log in. That's a problem. So I welcome any discussion about that subject.
Yeah, I wanted to, and I'll combine two things. So I was going to say, as a caveat to emergency management, to remind folks that we have 4% positive rate, which is down from where we were. But still, COVID is a real thing. So we got to be careful out there, continue to social distance, continue to wear your mask, and then hopefully folks will get their vaccine when they're able to. That being said, I certainly see a real need for this town hall to be capable of remote work when necessary. And I think we've been close to having our operation shut down. So I concur with that statement.
Do we need help with logistics, Kelly? Is it just as simple as a laptop to get started?
It's as simple as a laptop, and there's a program called Remote PC. So when I'm at home, on my computer at home, I I've downloaded Remote PC onto my computer. I log into my computer here, and it's as though I'm sitting in front of my desk.
Yeah,
And I have a remote printer, so when I print, instead of printing here, it prints at my home.
And to add to this also, and I just got off of one, like a lot of us, Zoom meetings, MS Teams meetings, those kinds of things. I mean, even for the town board, if something happens and we cannot meet together like this, we should be able to have a mechanism for being able to conduct a town board meeting, especially in the environment that we're in right now. The technology is there, it's out there. We've talked about, I think it was the first meeting in January, talked about, broadcasting, and Councilman King had a great idea of having our town meetings available for the public to be able to see. I don't think we need to let that go. I think we need to look at that. School board, I'm gonna find out. I'll find out, some of you all may know, but the school board routinely, every 2 weeks, has a school board meeting that is broadcast. I'm not sure what the mechanism is, but it's broadcast, and it's the type of thing, it's controlled, it's monitored. From my understanding, it's the type of thing that if someone in the public has MJ may know more about it, but if someone has a question, they can put it in the chat box. Someone's monitoring that. I mean, this is sort of the way these platforms, that's not correct?
They have their own meeting going on, and they broadcast it on YouTube at the same time, and people can send emails to someone monitoring an email account.
Okay, so, but it is
They can't participate anyway, verbally or...
okay, but it's a real-time feedback loop that people in the community can observe and ask questions, and then the school board needs to monitor it. That's what I need to find out. So I need, I apologize, I need to know the details on it, but I think we need to, in terms of looking at an online presence, there's a continuity of operations is really what Ty's talking about, what everyone's talking about in terms of the town board, or the town infrastructure itself. But then I think there's not gonna be that big of a step to go into being able to get more community involvement, giving them that option. If we're gonna take one step, I think we can just take another one, and it's not gonna be that big of a thing.
So, it sounds like we're gonna get a laptop, and we're gonna have remote capability input, so that whether it would be, not everybody's mission critical that way, but your office with payroll, comptroller duties, billing, and with the building department, the two that I can think of, not to shun you, June, if you felt the need at any time, but those are the two that are on my mind. And with the zoning board of appeals, they're all older. Sorry, guys, they're all older. They don't want to come here. They're not going to come here. Last year, Jack Janarone's own computer was insufficient, so he has a town one he uses. This is a little bit tough to talk about, but last year they were very, very active, and we've discussed in the past of revising the law related to escrows. Just today, I believe, there was a bill submitted for just shy of $20,000 for services rendered by that board from their attorney. That was all made possible by WebEx and the use of that computer that he has. If they didn't have that computer, there wouldn't be any zoning board of appeals activities.
So I think
So-
PBA is the same way.
So, I mean, I hope that Bob trusts me in this position. I think that we should go ahead out of the building department. I think there's plenty of money. I'm not quite sure. I'm gonna say $800. What do you think?
If you approve it, I'll contact the Windsor IT and they'll get us a laptop from state bid, so probably between $500 and $700.
Do I have to be specific which fund, or can we do this generically?
Well, what I would do is I would charge it to our IT budget, and then down the road, we may have to do a budget transfer back to
Okay.
the budget, at which time we would see where we would transfer it from.
What's the monetary amount to be safe before I ask for a motion?
800,
800?
up to 800.
Okay.
Not to exceed?
Yes, Richie.
Rich, I was just gonna ask Kelly, what protection is there if you're working remotely that other people can't access those accounts also? I mean, I understand the benefit of it, but the last thing you'd want to do is have somebody hack into the system because it's remote, and they play around with the payroll, or they go into sensitive information.
Well, everything is password protected. And now our financial software, you have to change your password every 60 days or 90 days, I forget. which.
I'd like
When I
to,
originally set up
Yeah.
the remote PC, New Windsor IT guided me through it. I didn't ask specifically about the security, but I trust New Windsor IT, and if they use it, I would trust that it's secure.
well, if you could find out more,
I will.
I'd like to know a little
Yeah.
bit more, because I'd hate to see somebody access it and mess up the records
Right.
and play around with them.
You would have to do that, like, if I was logging in from home and somebody wanted to get into, they'd have to know my remote PC password,
Mhm.
they'd have to know my network ID password, and they'd have to know my admin's ID to get into the payroll.
Which most people wouldn't bother, but I know there are people out
Oh, I
there
know,
that
I
that
know.
are capable of doing that,
I know.
and they have caused.
So, well, I'll look into
problem.
it for you.
Yes, sir.
To that point, Councilman Perry, I do think the board, right, should put in place a policy, right, for that work at home, right, and even just mandating that when they leave for lunch, right, they don't leave town hall, right, because someone comes in, a cleaning person comes in, a 16-year-old who wants to play joke, whatever the case may be, right, I think the town should institute a policy on that laptop or that remote login and access.
Yeah, certainly, I think that, here we are in the 21st century, the government, everybody else is doing remote work, but however, the policies that alluded to here are necessary to have the discipline to take a laptop out of town hall, go home, and that just anybody can jump on it.
Yeah.
So that's where another level of supervision has to come, oversight that is, got to come into place.
Maybe we could have someone sign, have something written up, and when you're going to use the laptop, you have to sign, the
Okay.
form stating what.
And we're not talking for someone to be able to sip pina coladas while they're home. We're talking about the need for it because of quarantining and everything else, which that 13,000 door we put in down there was meant to keep the problems from Main Street out. Those problems have migrated to the other side of the door through nobody's fault, just through the virus spread and the dynamics associated. So are we comfortable enough to act on it? Should I look for a motion in a second, or you want to table it?
I'd like to get a little more information.
Yeah.
On the security.
I was going to say, that I think Kelly, if she could look into, maybe get some
Okay.
pricing, look at the security, that type of stuff, and then we can,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So at our next meeting, hopefully, we can act upon that.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any other general public comment pretty much about anything?
One last comment from me as to conclude the topic of COVID-19. One of the things that we're looking into is putting a pop-up COVID-19 vaccine operation into the community center / senior center. That's the building down in Highland Falls. That's behind the Navy Federal. And so our recreation director is looking into that. He's talking to the health department now. I'm got oversight of that. But hopefully that can be done here shortly because that's a definite need for it. That's it.
I'll go.
Yeah.
One more thing, if I could, that, I think Councilman King, I think he may have mentioned this last time, but this is an ongoing thing that's happening between the town and the village, looking at police consolidation. That this is, again, one of the topics of looking to see how we can do things more efficiently, more effectively, without sacrificing any kind of service. And in fact, perhaps even enhancing it. And so both Councilman King and I are part of a group with the village. The Mayor D'Onofrio is on that, Trustee Aylward is on that, and there are going to be a couple of other community members that's being formed right now. But again, there's no real answer on this yet, but there is a definite, sincere desire to look to see what makes sense. What makes sense in terms of community policing and what makes sense in terms of affordability without sacrificing the quality of the policing. And so I just wanted to mention that also. That's an ongoing effort, and I think between the two of us, we'll be continuing to work that and updating the board, stuff like that. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that also.
Excellent. In my lifetime, I started coming to this building when I was 4 years old, when my mother would come with Judge Avery to do arraignments in this room. So I've seen the studies, about every 10 years it evolves. I think I could write a book on the subject of village and town government. Towns have to exist, villages formed because you're coming to West Point, your stagecoach has a broken spoke, and you need a blacksmith to fix it, and the blacksmith has to have water, so he's near Buttermilk Falls. So we've evolved beyond that to this point. Towns have to exist, villages don't. We're here, we have to provide services if the people are looking for it. So the way I've always looked at it is with the village people looking to consolidate or shut down, that's fantastic. But what are your provisions for what the town is gonna do the next day? Where are you gonna put your police? Is there enough room in the building? One chief makes $35,000 a year, the other one makes $130,000 a year. There's a whole bunch of things to be thought about, and I look forward to that conversation.
So it needs to be looked at unemotionally, very analytically, and looking at what's the right thing. And so that's the big piece here, is getting the right people that are going to be doing that.
Thank you.
And again, there's no answer yet.
Anything else?
Yeah, final thought. I'd like to thank Mayor D'Onofrio. He seems to be very motivated to want to get some of this stuff done in terms of recreation,
Right.
policing, and so salute you. Let's get it done.
That's right.
Been a pleasure, everybody. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?